Well, hello everyone, if you can hear me. We're going to be doing some testing today on 136. I'm XOOM, as the title says, so just hang tight. And we're going to go ahead and get going in just a moment, making sure all these other feeds are working. What we have here is the 136 Alpha, so just one moment please. Part of 136's design, probably one of the most difficult parts, has been becoming a member of the Allied forces, really, I should say, managing their supply. So you should be able to see everything happening here. This is the entire game map that we have, and you'll notice right out the gate, these have typically identified areas for supply, so like brigades and divisions, things like that. And they're all over the game map. So this video is probably going to be the first real interactive look at what 136 is going to be. It's going to be on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. We probably even have it on Steam right now, and I may be forgetting a channel. So we're going to start here in the really historical area of Antwerp. This place is always pretty filled in terms of combat and strategy. There's a lot of supply, and it also combines air, land, and sea, so that's why we're starting here. You'll notice that, again, there's a lot more supply here to work with. Hybrid supply is a combination of new, which is the brigade supply, and old. And these are garrisons. I'm going to go ahead and highlight my mouse over Antwerp Central District, and you can kind of see what's in there right now. Every town will have garrisons that's on the front line, or one town adjacent from that. And every single docks is going to, like this right here, identifies a deep water port, which is where destroyers, as well as troop transports and other fair miles spawn out of. These will always have an army garrison and a naval garrison. Likewise, here we have an airfield in Antwerp South District. We have new districts on Antwerp, if you didn't catch that. Earlier this year, we split this up into a couple different ownerships to kind of spice things up instead of it just being one town. We did the same down here in Brussels. So focusing here on Antwerp South District, we're going to highlight this. This is a really good example. It shows nothing but garrisons in that town. So if you can just look at it really quickly, it says there's a army garrison in that town. There's an airborne garrison in that town, an Air Force garrison, and a naval garrison. So every single airfield across the game world is going to have an army unit in it, a garrison, a Air Force garrison, and a paratrooper garrison. In this town, because it also has docks, has a naval garrison as well. Which, as we go around, we'll look at the Allied supply here shortly. Other airfields, you can see it right here as well. In Lille and Sekelen, every single one of these airfields is going to have supply, which should be really considered great news for not just the Air Force guys, but also people who really like airborne. You can see it all at these other strategic points as well. So there's a lot more supply across the game world, period, which was inherent in the design. We want to stabilize the campaign, give squads more impact and ability to maneuver without high command officers necessarily dictating their every move. I want to also mention that when I say stuff like that, I'm not discrediting or attempting to discredit the high command guys. You guys who are there have helped us. You're still helping us as we develop this. High command isn't going away. It's going to be around for a little bit longer, as in pretty much indefinitely. Its role is going to change. It won't be required to move flags or else, because it's a big spooky thing right now. This supply garrisons will activate and deactivate as ownership of towns change. We're going to take a quick look here at the town of Comthout. Comthout is currently, and this is a map starting state, the way everything looks here. So Comthout currently has an army garrison owned by the British forces. To its front line, this is a front line because it's direct action to an enemy town, is Woosweasel. They have an army garrison. One town adjacent from that, so to its rear, is Zundert, and they have an army garrison. Notice it says status backline, and that says status frontline. That's trying to help you guys understand. One of the big things as part of our garrison supply that we really wanted to achieve was being able to move we wanted to be able to take the backline supply and have it move forward to the front line with ease as best as possible. When we introduced brigade supply, or my predecessors for that matter, it devastated this type of gameplay. It removed the ability to resupply the front line. And from that, interdiction was also removed. I'm having an interruption. 1 second, please. Hold on. Real life happens. Sorry for that. So we wanted to move supply as best as we could from the rear to the front. Being able to overstock towns was really critical. And we're going to start so that you can have 100% supply overstock in the frontline town. We've also confirmed, and this is pretty significant, that by overstocking that town, historically what you couldn't do before was be able to have that supply last through a supply reset, or a server reset, excuse me. So we've been testing as best as we can, and all indicators suggest right now that we're going to continue to have overstock survive a cluster restart, which is really great. That's good news. As we're here, we're going to demonstrate for a moment here how the line will change upon capturing a town. So we're going to pretend that Woosweasel is attacking Comthout. So let's get ready and see what happens. Let's say they're about to take the town. And this will be fairly quickly, so pay attention. And that you'll notice that's one of the bugs we're working on right now. It still has a British flag, but essentially it's saying that we just took that town. So we're going to keep going. We're going to reverse this, actually. Okay. And now the British guys are going to take Woosweasel. We're just going to keep going and quickly show you how the map's going to evolve if you were to take a series of towns. Now pay attention to the supply as things adjust here. Again, you'll notice there's a German flag in here. This is part of the things our developers are working on. This is why it's not deployable yet, but we're getting close. Okay, so that town properly is showing how each time we take a town, there's a new set of towns that are forming that rear supply. So now we're going to try and cut this area off and show you that the surrender system is going to still be here. Okay, it was working before. This is part of the deal. It does work. I may just need to restart the server. So the surrender mechanism, and most of everything that you know that is the current brigade system, is going to continue to be around and be functional. Most of this design is simply adding on top of that. Now this, we're going to demonstrate, in the past there was an issue with being able to control supply ownership. There was a North versus South issue for Allied forces, and it was a real problem. So inherent in our design, it was critical that we allow the Allied forces to be able to quickly adjust who owns their town. So we're going to try and do that real quickly and show you. So I'm going to right click as an HC officer, and we're going to change country. So we're going to change it to France. Okay, and then you can see it did change to French. We're going to change it to US, and it did. Okay, so that part is working, and there is a little bit of a some penalties that we'll get into later on, but it won't be something like, for example, if there's an AO here on Airshot, you won't be able to change your supply here at this town because it's directly linked to an AO, so an attack objective. Same with Lear, you wouldn't be able to change that either. This is designed to prevent any sort of gaminess to occur, and we think that that's going to be very useful. So it will, if you manually change the ownership of a town, there will be a supply timer penalty. So it prevents rapid succession of changing ownership. But having this option and allowing the Allied officers to make those decisions was pretty significant and important to the design. This is something that High Command is going to continue to do. So when you think about High Command's future in World War II Online, that's definitely one of them. We really want High Command officers to be less burdened overall with the management of supply. This has been something that the players have grilled HC officers over for making mistakes, even if they were completely honest. And when HC officers are not online, things start to fall apart pretty badly at present day. So with all the supply, you can look across the front line here. All these towns are going to have a garrison, which will be a defensive fighting force. And as each town collapses in either direction, the lines will move with it. Those garrisons will activate and deactivate accordingly, thus providing stability for overall campaign operations. So what's happening with brigades and divisions? Where are those going? They're staying around, but in smaller number. We will have 3 Army divisions total. The reason we chose 3 was to keep the number relatively small. We don't want them to have a huge impact to totally devastate a campaign, because we're obviously trying to stabilize it. But most certainly because there's 3 allied nations, and later as the tiers progress, we need to introduce the Americans. It'll be like, you know, 1 French, 1 Brit, 1 US. So that's why we came to 3. There's also usually a north, center, and south component to consider as well. There's still going to be quite a bit of strategy at play here. That's one of the things folks have been kind of concerned about, and I would just suggest, hey, don't be too concerned about it, because if you weren't here before brigades were introduced, there was still a lot of strategy at play. So it's not this big spooky thing that is going to totally ruin your gaming experience if you really enjoy World War II Online. We've made this whole assessment through the knowledge of what already has been this whole time, meaning we used to have town-based supply. In fact, it used to be all across the game world. Every single town, 20 towns deep, for example, had it. The reason we don't want to do that is we want to try and keep the focus on the front line. We also don't want to have extreme overstock situations. We'll be able to control the percentage of overstock per town, and we're going to say 100%, which means you can essentially double your supply. By the way, on that note, I will say that we've intentionally disabled the ability for mobile spawns to resupply forward garrisons. What does that mean? It means that if you're here in Mechlin, a backline town, as you can see, and you want to resupply Lear, one guy can't drive a truck all the way up here, deploy a mobile spawn, and despawn 50 to 100 times to overstock that town. Just won't work that way. Sorry. We think that would get gamey and would devalue things pretty badly. And we know folks would do that, and it's okay because it's a competitive game. We want to win, but we don't want that. We actually want people to move supply, and what I foresee is typically going to be tanks and things like that going forward. From there, as you can see, ongoing all the supply across the map, we have all the divisions that we currently have in game today. That's what these huge, but those are going to be trimmed down. This is just a test server. We definitely still have some bugs we're working on, but it was really important for me just to kind of share with you guys where we're at, demonstrate that, hey, things are really happening. There are some good moves, and yeah, things are going good. So let's also show you how to join a garrison. So we still have pretty much all the same user interface at this stage. We're going to be correcting that, but we are really concerned with just getting this out there in terms of, you know, hey, this is, the user interface isn't going to cause a stabilization of the campaign. It is very important. We need to correct it, but it's not, this is step one, is what I'm saying. So let's join the WWII Army Garrison. So I just right-clicked. You right-click, you can see that right there, and join. You're in. And this looks very familiar. It's like you're in a brigade HQ. So you'd want to, of course, create a mission, and we're gonna set that. It's all the same stuff, very familiar, and naturally there's no TOE for this one. That's nice. Let's try a different unit. Hold on. Normally the supply would be there, so I think I need to restart this server. Let's try this one. Okay. Well, I was able to do that successfully the other day, but that's how you join the garrison, and you should be able to easily swap garrisons too. Yep, I just did. So it's a simple right-click, join garrison or brigade. So in this town it has divisions and a garrison, and you can see all the brigades and the garrison easily changeable. Very easy. So that was me swapping from Dees Army Garrison, the static unit there, to 4th Panzer KG-1, and I'm going to go to KG-2 just for kicks, and that's how quickly it is. So that's working very, very smoothly. Very good stuff there. I'm going to go ahead and ask Chim. Chim is here watching. I'm having some mic troubles on Discord, but I'm ready for some questions. Do we have any questions out there, Chim? Every time, so what happens to the supply when a town surrenders? That's a really good question. If the ownership of a town changes, which in your example it does, sorry, they can't hear me on Discord, so they're walking on me. So when the supply, or when the ownership changes on a town, the supply gets deactivated. When it reactivates, it doesn't remember that information. It simply starts fresh. So in this case, whatever supply was in that town, let's say that, as an arbitrary example, a Kalmthout was taken by the Germans. If you overstock that town and the Germans took it, that supply goes back to default server settings. If you liberated that town, you're starting with whatever supply the TOE sheet says that you're going to have. Hopefully that makes sense. Jim, what else we got? Other good question. Sorry for the delays. I'm going to fix this. That pretty much concludes, I think. I don't have too much more to add. I guess we could look at the Zealands really quickly. One of the things that's been happening in the campaign for some time is that most folks just, as quickly as possible, go to cut off the Zealands, which kind of sucks, because it devastates all of the great times that we had in our Zealand area. So it's a lot of fun. So, one of the things Garrison's is doing is that at, again, every single docks, you can see this. This is the whole Zealand Island area. Look at all the docks that are filled with supply. This is good news for all naval players, by the way. It's going, you know, every single deep water port, including over here in England, is going to have supply. You'll be able to defend yourself better if you want to go on, or, you know, the Germans, watch out for the Germans going through RDP missions over here. But again, the big thing is the Zealands are not going to be as easily cut off. And you might be able to see some of those old school cool battles that, you know, if you were around back then, you know, we had some major battles here in Vlissingen, and we used to walk all through this, even when we had unenterable forests, if you remember that. So I'm personally pretty excited about it. You can also see down here, very soon, this is called France 1. This is the expansion development. This is what it looked like before, not long ago. But these, you can see all the greater detail in towns. This is a blueprint of what's coming. It's going to extend the coastline and the warfare there. And what you haven't perhaps seen yet is there's a whole bunch of stuff coming up in here too, which is going to be really cool. In fact, there's going to be, you can kind of see the development in this area. There will be an airfield there. This will be, I believe, the town of Rotterdam. There's another airfield. And this is going to be a really big, you know, pretty big old town, which is going to be really exciting. So we have terrain expanding. We have 136 coming, among other things. So there's a lot of stuff happening. The 136's design and these terrain expansions are inherently attached to each other because the starting lines at some point may change. Either way, it's going to adjust the dynamic of how campaigns are fought and therefore won. Well, I guess that's it for now. If you have other questions, we'll go ahead and answer them. Today was just a visual briefing of, hey, we're making pretty good progress. We're building on top of what we already have. There is some more work to be done, but it is almost there. So we do fully expect, as talking with our development team lead the other day, to be in closed beta within this first quarter, as we've said that we would be. This has been a pretty significant project itself. obviously it's a pretty important one to get right. So as we enter closed beta, what's going to happen is high command officers are going, all of them on both sides, are going to get access to come in here and help us better, check things, make sure the normal things are not screwed up. Currently, our community management team and quality assurance team are doing the most effort. I'm in here as well as Ohm, the game manager, of course the community manager, Blackhawk 8. We're all trying to make sure that this goes out as best as possible, and then we'll have closed beta to battle test it more, make more changes, and then eventually we'll have probably a week or two of, hey, let's all just get used to this, of rolling it out before we go bananas and say, hey, we're officially live with it. But at some point, you guys will be required as a whole player base to get familiar with this. It is a game changer, but it's not a scary one. It's pretty conservative, the approach we've chosen, and I just want to implore you all to be patient as we go through this. It's worth it. There's a lot of people on the sidelines waiting to get in here. I'd hope they come back sooner, but I understand. We'll get this done as quickly as we can. So thanks for your support, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the forums. We do have a whole dedicated forum for this. Take the contents of this video and let's talk about it there. Thanks for being here.